When I reached for the fridge in my own darn kitchen, she smacked my hand. Quick, sharp, like I was some rowdy kid sneaking candy. The sound cracked through the pre-dawn quiet, and for a second I just froze. I stared at my reddened hand, the sting burning. But it was nothing compared to the gut-deep humiliation. Kayla looked at me with that cold, smug stare, like I was a pesky bug in her path, and said in an ice-chip voice I won't forget, "Where do you think you're going without permission?" My throat locked up. No words came out. It felt like my own house had turned into a lockup, and I was the trespasser. Then I heard Evan, my son, the baby I carried for 9 months, the one I sat up with through fevers, say something that split me in half. "My wife runs this house now. You need her say-so just to breathe." In that moment, my world caved in. Not because of the slap, not because of her mouth, but because my boy was backing her. The floor might as well have opened and swallowed me whole. I'm 62, and never thought I'd be talked down to in the home I built with Henry. Those walls that once held laughter and soft Sunday music now felt like they were pressing in, squeezing out the air. I searched Evan's face for my son, but all I saw was a stranger, a man on a leash, parroting his wife like it was gospel. When did I lose him? When did he stop being my kid and turn into her puppet? Kayla folded her arms and smiled. Nothing warm in it, just distilled cruelty. "Back to your room, Mags," she said, using my name like a jab. "Next time you're hungry, you ask nicely. We've got rules here, and you'll follow them." "Clear," I nodded. My legs were shaky, and if I opened my mouth, a broken sob would be all that fell out. I turned and walked to my room, feeling their eyes stuck to my back like knives. Every step felt heavy, like I was packing the whole world on my shoulders. I shut the door and dropped onto the bed. Tears slipped down my cheeks. I cried quiet, biting my lip so I wouldn't make a sound, because even crying felt like it needed approval in my own house. My stomach grumbled, but the hurt in my chest was louder. How did I end up here? How did I let this happen? The questions spun while I stared at the ceiling I painted years ago when Henry was still alive. I felt like a stranger in my own life, like somebody jacked my whole existence and left me the empty shell. I thought of Henry, a man of backbone, and wondered what he'd say. He'd never let anyone treat me like that. He would have stepped in, talked sense into Evan. But Henry's been in the ground 3 years, and I'm alone in this nightmare. I remembered the night 6 months back when Evan called with that panicked tone no mother can ignore. "Mom, I need your help. Kayla and I are in a rough spot. I lost my job and we can't swing the rent. Can we stay with you for a bit? I swear it's temporary. How was I supposed to say no? He's my only child, the most important person after Henry." I said yes, opened my door without a second thought, never imagining I was inviting trouble I couldn't shake. At first, it all looked normal. Kayla was polite, even sweet. She helped with chores, smiled when I looked her way, called me mom-in-law like she meant it. Evan seemed relieved, promising he'd find work and they'd be out soon. "It's just temporary, Mom," he said every week. But weeks turned into months, and the tiny things started showing. Kayla rearranged my kitchen without asking, stashing my pots where I couldn't reach. She swapped my bath towels for hers and stuffed mine in a drawer like junk. Little line crosses I ignored to keep the peace. Then came the suggestions. "Mags, how about you eat dinner earlier? Evan and I need evenings to ourselves." Or, "Mags, keep it down in the morning. You wake us." Every suggestion was just an order wearing perfume, and I went along like a fool. Evan said nothing. When I tried to talk about Kayla's behavior, he shrugged. "She's stressed about money. Mom, give her time." It was always give her time, always be patient. I was the one bending, every single time. One day, Kayla decided my TV hours were not working because she wanted her shows. Another day, she claimed weekends on the washer because it was their laundry time. Evan nodded along like an obedient dog. But nothing prepped me for what came next, the day my own house stopped feeling like mine. 3 months ago at dinner, Kayla announced she'd made cohabitation decisions. She set her silverware down with a sharp clank that made me jump. Evan stared at her with that syrupy adoration that turned my stomach. "Starting tomorrow," she said, voice firm like a boardroom call. "We're putting clear rules in place. This house needs order and discipline." I looked at her, waiting for Evan to step in, say anything, but he just nodded like it all made sense. "Rules?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Kayla, this is my house." "Why do we need rules?" She sighed, crossed her arms. That move that always meant something mean was coming. "Exactly because it's your house, Mags. You've let it slide into chaos. If we're staying, we're doing it my way." The way she hit my way chilled me. She wasn't suggesting, she was laying down the law, and Evan sat there, quiet, letting it happen. Next morning, a list was taped to the fridge, Kayla's perfect handwriting spelling out what I could and couldn't do in my own home. I read each line, heat rising in my chest like a wild animal trying to bust out. "Kitchen. Mags can cook 8 to 9 a.m. and 2-3 p.m. Outside those hours, the kitchen is Kayla's exclusive space." Exclusive space. In my house. I kept reading, hands shaking. "Bathroom. Mag showers before 7 a.m. or after 10 p.m. so the couple's routine isn't disrupted. My longtime 8 a.m. shower with the news? Gone. Living room. Friday and Saturday nights belong to Evan and Kayla. Mag stays in her room after 8 p.m. Banished like old furniture. 20+ points, each one more absurd and humiliating. I ripped the list down so hard a corner tore. I marched to their door and pounded, rage moving through me like boiling lava. "Evan, we need to talk now." Kayla opened up in a pink silk robe I'd never seen, probably bought with the money I gave Evan. She looked annoyed, like I was some pushy salesperson. "What is it, Mags?" We were sleeping. "This," I said, shaking the list. "This is what's wrong. Who do you think you are, making rules in my house?" My voice came out louder than I meant, years of biting my tongue finally snapping. Evan showed behind her, rumpled. "Mom, what's going on?" he asked in that boyish tone he uses to duck trouble. But he's 35 and he'd picked his wife over his mother, and that choice was breaking me. "What's going on is your wife posted house rules on my fridge like I'm a guest," I said. "Are you really letting this slide, Evan?" I searched his face for the kid who used to defend me. Kayla stepped in before he could answer. "These rules are necessary, Mags. You're not living alone anymore. There are 3 of us and we need structure. Or would you rather live in a mess?" "A mess?" I repeated, stunned. "I lived here 40 years with my husband. There was no mess. The mess started when you 2 arrived." Her face hardened. Eyes narrowed like a snake ready to strike. "Evan," she said, eyes still on me, "tell your mother if she doesn't like the rules, she can find somewhere else to live." The silence was deafening. I waited for Evan to push back, to say this was his mother's home and no one was kicking her out. Instead, he sighed, raked a hand through his hair and said, "Mom, Kayla's right. The rules will help. It's not a big deal, it's just schedules." It felt like a punch. My own son was co-signing this madness, turning me into the villain in my own story. "Not a big deal," I whispered, tears burning. "Evan, they're taking my house, my life. How can you not see it?" I reached for him, but he stepped back. "You're exaggerating, Mom. We're trying to make it work. If we could leave, we would. We need you to be understanding." Understanding became his mantra for months. Whenever I stood up for myself, Kayla smiled like she'd already won. "Glad you understand, Evan. Your mother needs to learn things have changed." She turned away, leaving me with my son and a canyon I couldn't cross. "How can you let her play you like this?" I asked softly, a last-ditch attempt to make him react. "Your father would be ashamed to see you like this, Evan. A man with no spine." I know they were harsh words, but they were the truth, and someone had to tell him. Evan's face hardened. "Don't drag Dad into this. He's not here and you have no idea what he would think. Kayla is my wife, and I'm going to stand by her. If you can't respect that, then we have a problem." He turned his back on me and closed the door in my face. Literally, the sound of that door closing thudded in my chest like the closing of a coffin. I stood there in the hallway with the crumpled list still in my hand, feeling my world fall apart. I had lost my son. I had lost him to a calculating woman who had found the perfect victim, an insecure, unemployed, vulnerable man easy to control. I shuffled back to my room, suddenly feeling like a 100-year-old woman. I sat on the edge of my bed and looked at the photographs on my nightstand. Henry and me on our wedding day, young and full of dreams. Evan as a baby, chubby and smiling in my arms. A family photo on the beach, all of us laughing under the sun. When did everything break? From that day on, I followed the rules, not because I agreed with them, but because I had no strength left to fight. Every morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. to shower before the prohibited time. I cooked within the narrow time margins Kayla had assigned me. I locked myself in my room on Friday and Saturday nights like a prisoner serving a sentence. And the worst part of it all was seeing Evan every day, walking past him in the hallways of my house without recognizing him. The son I raised, the boy who used to hug me and tell me I was the best mom in the world, now looked at me as if I were an obstacle in his life. Kayla had completely transformed him, and I didn't know how to get him back. The following weeks were a silent nightmare. Every day, Kayla found new ways to remind me that I no longer owned my own life. She began to reorganize the entire house to her liking without consulting me, as if my 40 years of living here meant absolutely nothing. One day, I came home from grocery shopping and discovered she had moved all the living room furniture. My favorite armchair, the one where Henry and I used to sit and watch movies on Sunday nights, was now pushed against the wall, almost hidden behind a huge plant she had bought. In its place, a new gray sofa occupied the center of the room. "I picked it up with money Evan saved," she said when she saw me staring with my mouth open. We both knew Evan wasn't working, that the money came from my retirement check, but she dared to lie to my face. "You didn't consult me," I said, trying to stay calm, though my chest was burning with indignation. "You could have asked me before changing everything." Kayla didn't even look up from her cell phone. She was sitting on her new sofa, legs crossed, painting her nails a deep red that reminded me of blood. "I don't need your say-so to improve this house, Mags. It was old and depressing. Now at least it has some style." The dismissive way she said old and depressing hit me like a slap. She wasn't just talking about the furniture. She was talking about me, my life, everything Henry and I built together. I tried to talk to Evan that night, but he already had his automatic response ready. "Mom, the old couch was shot." "Kayla's just trying to make the place nicer. You should thank her instead of complaining." Thank her for spending my money on things I didn't ask for erasing my husband's memories from this house, for transforming my home into something unrecognizable. But that was just the beginning. Kayla started inviting her friends over without telling me. They arrived in a group, loud and pushy, occupying the living room as if it were a public coffee shop. I locked myself in my room, listening to their laughter and conversations, feeling like a stranger in my own space. Once I came out to go to the bathroom, and one of them looked me up and down with obvious disdain. "Is that your mother-in-law?" she asked Kayla in a tone she didn't bother to lower. Poor thing. Must be tough living off her at that age. Her friends laughed, and I felt the humiliation burn inside me. Kayla said nothing to defend me. She just smiled and changed the subject, leaving me standing there like a fool while they all ignored me. She began to control what I ate. She said I needed to diet, that at my age I should take better care of myself. She eliminated everything I liked from the pantry, the oatmeal cookies I ate with my coffee in the mornings, the chocolate I saved for difficult times, even the strawberry jam Henry used to buy me every month. "Too much sugar, Mags. Not healthy," she'd say while filling the shelves with her pricey organic products that I ended up paying for. When I dared to buy something for myself, something small that would give me even a moment of happiness, Kayla would find it and throw it in the trash. "I told you no sugar, Mags. Why don't you listen?" And Evan, my own son, nodded as if she were doing me a favor. As if controlling every aspect of my life was an act of love and not cruelty. One afternoon, I decided to cook the family chili that Evan had always loved. That recipe my mother taught me, which had been in our family for generations. I wanted to reclaim even a moment of connection with my son, to remind him of the days when we were a happy family. I spent the entire afternoon in the kitchen during my small allowed time window, putting all my love into that dish. When I served dinner, Kayla smelled the chili and scrunched her nose in disgust. "What is this?" "It reeks." My heart sank. "It's Evan's favorite chili," I said, trying to smile. "He used to love it when he was a boy." I looked at Evan, hoping he would remember, that he would say something kind, that he would give me even a crumb of affection. But Kayla spoke first. "Evan doesn't eat heavy stuff anymore. We're watching what we eat, remember? Besides, I already prepared salads for dinner." She pointed toward the refrigerator where there were indeed 2 salads perfectly arranged in glass containers. Just 2 salads, one for her, one for Evan, none for me. "I ate during my window," she added with that fake smile I hated so much. "Didn't know you were cooking. Rules say you coordinate with me outside your slot." It wasn't true. I had cooked exactly in my assigned time, but arguing with her was useless. She always found a way to make me look like the culprit. Evan didn't even try the chili. He ate his salad in silence while I stared at the pot full of food that no one was going to eat. All that wasted afternoon. All that rejected love. That night I dumped the chili in the trash and cried over the sink, trying not to make a sound so they wouldn't hear me. The days turned into an endless cycle of small humiliations that piled up like stones on my chest. Kayla criticized my clothes, saying I dressed like an old woman and was embarrassing to be seen with when we went out together. She criticized the way I spoke, the way I walked, the way I existed, and Evan never said a word, never defended me. He just nodded or looked away. He stopped calling me Mom. Now he only said Mags in that impersonal tone you use with an acquaintance, not with the woman who gave you life. Every time I heard my name in his mouth without that Mom before it, I felt like I died a little inside. Kayla had managed to erase even that, even the most sacred bond between a mother and her son. I started to be afraid in my own house, afraid to make noise, afraid to take up space, afraid to breathe too loudly. I tiptoed through the hallways like a ghost, trying not to bother anyone, not to exist too much. My very presence had become undesirable, and I was shrinking every day, making myself smaller, disappearing. One night, I overheard Kayla talking on the phone with someone. Her voice cut through the thin walls of my house. "Don't worry, I've almost got her where I want her," she said, laughing. "It's just a matter of time before she leaves on her own, and when she does, the house is ours." Evan already signed the papers I gave him. The fool didn't even read them. My blood ran cold. What papers? What was she talking about? I pressed myself against my bedroom wall, holding my breath, trying to hear more. "Yeah, the lawyer says that signature is enough. Once she's gone or if something happens, Evan inherits everything. And as his wife, I get rights to it all." That clueless old woman has no idea what's coming. I felt nauseated. Kayla wasn't just taking my house while I was alive. She was planning to keep everything legally. And Evan, my naive and manipulated son, had signed something without even consulting me. The betrayal ran so deep I couldn't process it. My own son was helping to rob me, though he probably didn't even know it. The next day, I tried to talk to Evan about what I'd heard. "Son, I need you to tell me the truth. Did you sign any documents recently? Anything related to the house or inheritance?" He looked at me confused for a second, then uncomfortable. "Kayla asked me to sign some lawyer forms," he said. "She said it was to protect us if something happened to you, to make things easier." "And you didn't think to consult me?" I asked, feeling my voice break. "You didn't think maybe I should know about documents that involve my house?" Evan shrugged, that gesture of indifference he had perfected over these months. "Kayla said it's normal, families do this. I didn't want to bug you with legal stuff. Legal technicalities. My assets, my home, my entire life reduced to legal paperwork. Evan, your wife is manipulating you. She is planning to take everything. Don't you see it?" But before he could respond, Kayla appeared, as she always did at the exact moment to interfere. "Stuffing Evan's head with nonsense again? Mags, don't you get tired of starting drama?" She looked at me with those cold, calculating eyes. Evan, tell your mother to stop inventing conspiracies. She's paranoid. Age does that. And Evan, like the perfect puppet he had become, looked at me and said, Mom, Kayla's right. You're seeing problems that aren't there. In that moment, I knew I had completely lost my son. There was no way to make him see the truth. Kayla had built a wall so solid between us that my words couldn't reach him anymore. I was trapped in a nightmare with no visible escape. Things got worse in ways I never imagined possible. Kayla began controlling even the air I breathed in my own house. She decided my room needed a renovation. And one day, while I was at the bank cashing my retirement check, she went in and took out all my things. When I returned, I found boxes piled in the hallway, and my most precious belongings were carelessly tossed about. What did you do? I cried, seeing her come out of my room with a bag full of my photographs. Those are my things. You can't touch them. Kayla didn't even flinch. She set the bag on the floor and dusted off her hands as if she had been handling garbage. Relax, Mags, I'm just organizing. Your room was a mess. Old junk nobody needs. I opened one of the boxes and my heart broke into 1,000 pieces. There were the love letters Henry wrote me during our courtship. The drawings Evan made in kindergarten. The shawl my mother knitted for me before she died. All wrinkled and mixed with old clothes without any respect, without any care. These aren't junk, I said, tears streaming down my cheeks. These things are my life. They're my memories. Well, your keepsakes take up way too much space, Kayla replied, crossing her arms. Besides, I need that closet for my clothes. Ours is already full. Our room. The master bedroom that had been mine and Henry's for decades was now theirs. And now they wanted my closet, too. My space. Everything I had left. I'm not giving you my closet, I said, trying to sound firm, though my whole body was shaking. You already have the master bedroom, the big bathroom, half the house. My room is the only thing I have left. Kayla smiled. That snaky little grin I knew so well. Well, then I guess these boxes will stay here in the hallway. Shame if someone tripped over them and got hurt. It was a veiled threat. If I didn't yield, she would destroy my things, throw them out, make them disappear. I saw it in her eyes, that ice-cold, calculated cruelty she had perfected. I swallowed and nodded, defeated. Fine, you can use the closet. Her smile widened. I knew you'd come around, Megs. See, when you cooperate, everything is easier. That night, I stored my most prized memories in a small shoebox I tucked under my bed. Henry's letters, the photos of baby Evan, the engagement ring I no longer wore because Kayla said it was outdated. Everything I had left of my former life now fit in a box I had to hide as if I were a criminal. Kayla started inviting Evan to go out without me, something they'd never done before. Let's go to the movies, she'd say, taking Evan by the arm. Just the two of us. We need couple time. And they would leave me alone in the house, my house, feeling like an intruder who should be grateful they allowed her to stay. When they returned, they always brought takeout, but only for the two of them. The smell of pizza or fried chicken would fill the house while I sat in my room with an empty stomach, wondering when my life had turned into this. Once Evan knocked on my door and offered me a slice. We brought extra in case you're hungry. Before I could accept, I heard Kayla's voice from the living room. Evan, get in here. That pizza is for lunch tomorrow. You can't just give it away. And Evan, as always, obeyed. He shrugged and said, Sorry, Mom, before closing my door. He didn't even have the courage to stay, to stand up to his wife, to choose me, even once. The humiliations became part of my daily routine. Kayla started leaving me chore lists. Wash her clothes, clean her bathroom, cook their favorite meals. When I protested, she said it was the least I could do since I was living here, for free. For free. In my own house, which I paid for with my earnings for years. One day I dared to refuse. I am not washing your clothes, Kayla. I am not your maid. Her face hardened into a mask of fury. Oh no? Well, then I want you to pay me rent. If you won't contribute with work, contribute with money. $500 a month for your room. 500? I repeated, incredulous. This is my house. I don't have to pay you anything. Kayla moved close, so close I could smell her expensive perfume, the one she bought with my money. This house will be Evan's someday, and Evan is my husband, so technically I have as much right as you do. Now wash my clothes or pay me. I didn't have $500 extra. My retirement check barely covered the bills, food, and the expenses Kayla constantly generated. So, I washed her clothes, hating myself with every garment I put in the washer, hating my cowardice, my inability to defend myself, my fear of being completely alone. Evan finally found a job, but it was part-time and barely paid $800 a month. I thought maybe that would change things. Maybe now they could leave and I'd get my house and my life back. But instead of looking for a place of their own, Kayla announced the money would be used to upgrade the house. They bought a huge flat-screen TV for the living room, a ridiculously expensive set of pots, new curtains for every window, all with the money supposedly for their independence. "And when are you planning to move out?" I asked one night at dinner. The question hung there like a bomb. Kayla stopped eating and stared at me. "Move out? Why would we move, Mags? We're perfectly fine here. Besides, you need us. You're an older woman living alone. It's dangerous. You should be grateful we're here to take care of you." Take care of me. They were slowly destroying me and calling it care. "I don't need you," I said with the firmest voice I could muster. I lived alone for 3 years after Henry died, and I was perfectly fine. "You said this was temporary." Evan finally spoke, and his words were worse than his silence. "Mom, don't be selfish." Kayla's right. At your age, you shouldn't be alone. Besides, it's my house too. Or did you forget I'm your son? Selfish? He called me selfish for wanting my own house back, for wanting to live without every move, every breath policed. I felt something inside me snap for good. That something that had been holding me up, that hope that Evan would eventually wake up and see what they were doing to his mother. "You're right," I said, standing from the table. "It is your house too. Someday it will be all yours. I hope it's worth it." I left my plate unfinished and went to my room. I heard Kayla tell Evan, "Your mother is so dramatic, always making a scene." And Evan laughed. My son laughed at my pain. I started avoiding them. I only left my room when absolutely necessary. I ate as little as possible so I wouldn't have to use the kitchen during their hours. I became a ghost in my own house, invisible, quiet, barely there. And still, Kayla found ways to remind me I was the problem. "Mags, your presence makes Evan tense," she told me one day. "Could you try to be less noticeable? When you're in the common areas, don't draw attention." Less noticeable? They wanted me to disappear completely, to stop existing for their convenience. One afternoon, while I was cleaning the bathroom during my assigned time, I found papers tucked behind the mirror, legal documents with Evan and Kayla's names. I read them with trembling hands and confirmed my worst suspicions. Kayla had made Evan sign a broad power of attorney, papers giving her control over medical, financial, and even house decisions if something happened to me. There was also a so-called care agreement where I supposedly agreed to let them stay in the house in exchange for them caring for me in old age. The document had my signature, but I had never signed it. It was a sloppy forgery, but probably enough to create legal problems if someone questioned it. My head was spinning. Kayla wasn't just taking my house and my son. She was setting the legal table to take everything. She was a calculated con, and Evan was her unwitting accomplice. Or maybe not so unwitting. I no longer knew what to think of my own son. I put the documents back exactly where I found them. I couldn't confront them yet because I didn't know what to do. I didn't have money for an attorney. I had no one to turn to. My family was either gone or lived far away. My friends had become distant over these months because Kayla always found excuses for me not to go out. I was completely alone and trapped. That night, as I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, I thought of Henry, how he would have handled this. Henry was a man of action, not talk. He would never have allowed anyone to humiliate us like this. And in that moment, lying in the darkness of my own prison, something shifted inside me. A spark of anger, of pride, of backbone I thought was gone. I still didn't know how, but I was going to get my life back. I was going to get my house back. And if that meant losing Evan in the process, then maybe I had already lost him a long time ago. Maybe the son I knew died the day he chose a cruel woman over his own mother. The night of the refrigerator incident came as the final straw. It had been an especially difficult day. Kayla made me clean the entire house because she was having visitors the next day. Her friends were coming for tea as if my living room were her private social lounge. I spent hours scrubbing floors, dusting furniture, tidying every corner until my knees and back ached. When I finished, it was almost 11 at night. Kayla inspected my work with a critical eye, dragging her finger over the window frames, looking for dust like a merciless supervisor. "I suppose it's acceptable," she finally said without even looking at me. "You can go to sleep," as if she were giving me permission to rest in my own house after cleaning for her guests. I went to my room exhausted, but couldn't sleep. My stomach growled with hunger. I hadn't eaten much all day because Kayla had used the kitchen the whole time preparing elegant snacks for her meeting the next day. My assigned hours had been completely ignored, but I said nothing. I'd learned pushing back only made it worse. Around 2:30 in the morning, the hunger was unbearable. I figured everyone would be asleep by then, and I could quietly sneak down to grab something to eat. Just a piece of bread, some cheese, anything to stop the emptiness. I got up carefully, put on my slippers, and left my room, tiptoeing like a thief in my own house. The kitchen was dark and silent. I breathed a sigh of relief, thinking I'd made it downstairs without waking anyone. I reached for the refrigerator and wrapped my hand around the handle. In that instant, just as I started to open it, I felt the blow. A dry, hard slap across my hand that made me drop the handle from pain and shock. "Where do you think you're going without permission?" Kayla's voice came out of the darkness like a serpent's hiss. She flicked on the light. There she was in her pink silk robe, fury on her face. My hand was stinging where she'd hit me, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the humiliation. "I'm hungry," I said, my voice barely audible. "I just wanted something to eat." I hated myself for sounding so weak, so pleading. Kayla crossed her arms and blocked the refrigerator with her body like it was a safe I was trying to crack. "At 2 in the morning? Without asking me?" she said. "I've told you 1,000 times. The food in this house is managed, Mags. You don't just grab whatever you want." "It's my refrigerator," I whispered, feeling tears well up. My food. My house. But even as I said it, I knew the words sounded hollow, stripped of power. Kayla laughed, a cold, nasty laugh that echoed in the quiet kitchen. "Your house? We'll see about that." I heard footsteps on the stairs, and Evan appeared, disheveled, sleepy-eyed. "What's going on? Why are you shouting?" I looked at my son with hope, thinking maybe this time, this one time, he would defend me, that he'd see how absurd this was. An older mother slapped for trying to eat in her own home. "Your mother was trying to steal food from the refrigerator without permission," Kayla said before I could speak. "I've explained the rules 1,000 times, but she won't listen." "Steal?" She had called me a thief in my own kitchen. I looked at Evan pleadingly, waiting for him to say something. Anything. "Mom," Evan said with a tired sigh, "is it really necessary to hash this out in the middle of the night? You know the rules. If you were hungry, you could have waited until morning." My legs began to shake. My own son was blaming me for being hungry, for wanting to eat in my own house, for just existing. "Evan, please." My voice broke. "It's ridiculous." She smacked my hand for trying to open the refrigerator. "Don't you see how messed up this is?" I held out my hand, showing him the rising red mark that was beginning to form. "Look at me, son. Look at this and tell me this is okay." But Evan didn't look at my hand. Instead, he looked at Kayla, who gave him a loaded look I couldn't decipher. And then my son said the words that would destroy any hope I had left. "My wife is the one in charge of this house now. You need her permission even to breathe." The world went still, even to breathe. The words floated in the air like sharp knives, stabbing my heart again and again. My son had just told me I had no right, even to the air I breathed, without his wife's permission, in my own house. The house I built with his father, the house where he was born, where he took his first steps, where I grew as a mother. Kayla smiled triumphantly. She had completely won. She had taken my son and turned him into her weapon against me. See, Mags, even Evan understands how things work now. The faster you accept it, the better for everyone. She walked over to the refrigerator, calmly opened it, and took out a bottle of water. She drank it in front of me slowly, savoring not just the water but her victory. "Now get back to your room," she ordered, closing the refrigerator. "And the next time you're hungry during unauthorized hours, deal with it, or ask properly." Evan nodded, backing her up. "Mom, go to sleep. We'll talk tomorrow." But I knew we wouldn't talk about anything tomorrow. Tomorrow would be the same as today and the day after, too. I walked up the stairs feeling that every step cost me a piece of my soul. I entered my room and closed the door. I sat on the edge of my bed, and it was there in the darkness of my own prison where everything finally changed. Something inside me broke, but not in the way they expected. I didn't break in defeat. I snapped into clarity. I saw my life with brutal sharpness. I saw that I had been begging for love, begging for respect, begging for a place in my own home. I had allowed them to reduce me to nothing, to turn me into a pleading shadow. And all because of fear. Fear of losing Evan, fear of being alone, fear of admitting that my son was no longer the boy I knew. But that night, with my hand still stinging from the slap, with an empty stomach and a shattered heart, I made a decision. A cold, clear, final decision. I was no longer going to beg. I was no longer going to plead. I was no longer going to allow them to treat me like trash in my own house. I got up and flipped on my bedroom light. I searched under my bed for the box where I kept my most precious things. Inside was a little money I had been saving in secret. 20s and 50s I hid whenever I could. It wasn't much, maybe a couple of hundred in total, but it was something. I also pulled out an old notebook and started writing. I wrote down everything that had happened in these months. Every humiliation, every abuse, every moment Evan chose Kayla over me. I didn't know what this record would be good for, but something told me I had to document everything. As I wrote, tears fell onto the paper, staining some words, but I didn't stop. I wrote until my hand ached, until I had emptied all the accumulated poison from my chest. And when I finished, when there were no more words to write, I knew exactly what I had to do. I wasn't going to confront them. I wasn't going to fight. I wasn't going to give them the spectacle of seeing me broken and pleading one more time. I was going to do something they would never expect from me, something that would hurt them much more than any scream or complaint. I was going to leave. I was going to disappear from their lives and leave them with exactly what they wanted, the house without me. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I stayed sitting on my bed, looking out the window as the dark sky slowly bled into a gray sunrise. With every minute that passed, my decision became more solid, more clear. There were no more doubts, no more fear. There was only a cold, definitive certainty. I had to get out of there before they completely destroyed me. At 6:00 in the morning, when I heard Evan and Kayla getting up, I sprang into action. I waited until they went into the bathroom and clicked my lock. I pulled an old suitcase from the closet, the one Henry and I used on our last trip to the coast together. I ran my fingers over the worn surface, remembering better days, days when love and respect weren't a luxury, but something normal. I packed the essentials: clothes for a week, my personal documents, the photographs I kept in the shoebox, Henry's letters. Everything that truly mattered fit in a small suitcase. 40 years of life reduced to a few objects I could carry alone. I realized that everything else, the furniture, the appliances, the material things, meant nothing without dignity. I put the money I had saved in my purse along with my medication and the house keys. I looked around my room one last time. Those walls had witnessed so many important moments. Sleepless nights taking care of Evan when he was a baby. Late-night conversations with Henry planning our future. Tears shed after his death. Now they were just walls that held in my suffering. I heard Evan and Kayla going downstairs to eat. Perfect. I heard them arguing about what to have for breakfast. I heard Kayla giving orders and Evan obeying. That morning ritual had completely excluded me. I waited a few more minutes until I was sure they were busy in the kitchen. I grabbed my suitcase and my purse. I took a long breath. This was the moment. I opened my door slowly, grateful the hinges didn't creak. I walked down the hallway toward the stairs, my heart pounding so hard I thought they would hear me. But they were too absorbed in their world, in their bubble where I didn't exist. I went down the stairs step by step, holding my breath. The front door was only a few feet away, a handful of steps and I would be free. But just before leaving, I stopped. I couldn't just leave. They needed to know that this time was different, that it wasn't a tantrum or a drama. It was a final decision. I left my suitcase by the door and went to the foyer table where we always left the mail. I took a piece of paper and a pen from my purse. My hand trembled slightly, but my mind was completely clear. I began to write in a firm, calm hand. Evan and Kayla, I'm leaving. Don't try to find me. The house is all yours now, just as you wanted. Enjoy everything you so desperately wanted to take from me. But remember that a house without love is just an empty building. We'll see how long it takes that truth to catch up with you. The property taxes are due next month. They are $1,200. The water and electricity are paid at the payment center every 15th. The heating system needs maintenance before winter. It costs around $300. I hope Evan's part-time job is enough to cover everything. Mags, I reread the letter. It was perfect. Short, cold, straightforward. With no tears, no pleas, no drama, just facts. I left it in the center of the table where they couldn't miss it. Then I picked up my suitcase and pulled open the front door. The cool morning air smacked my face like a slap of reality. I didn't look back. If I saw my house one more time, I might waver. I closed the door softly behind me with a gentle click and walked down the path toward the street. Every step felt lighter, as if I were leaving behind not just a house but invisible chains that had been choking me. I didn't have a specific plan, but I did have a place to go. Beverly, my childhood friend, lived across town. We had grown distant over the past few months because Kayla always made excuses when I wanted to visit her, that Evan needed me, that there were things to do around the house, that it was too risky for me to go out alone. Now I understood it was just another way to cut me off, to isolate me from any support. I walked 3 blocks to the bus stop. The sun was fully rising now, painting the sky in oranges and pinks. It was beautiful, and I realized it had been months since I had stopped to watch a sunrise. I slowly lost my dignity. On the other hand, it was my home. The home I built with Henry, where we lived our best years. I decided to wait, not out of weakness, but out of strategy. I wanted Evan and Kayla to fully feel the weight of their actions. I wanted them to hit rock bottom, to understand that the life I had been sustaining for them was neither easy nor free. And above all, I wanted Evan to wake up from Kayla's manipulation and see what he had truly lost. At the end of the month, the electricity shutoff notice arrived. The house was completely dark, without water or electricity, with debts piling up and no money to pay anything. The fantasy Kayla had built was crumbling brick by brick, and Evan was finally beginning to see the truth he had been avoiding for months. It was in the 4th week when everything definitively exploded. Beverly arrived one afternoon with fresh news from her network of neighborhood informants. "You won't believe this, Mags," she said, "but it's all coming apart over there, and fast." "Mags, you won't believe this," she said, her eyes shining with excitement. Kayla left Evan. She walked out with her bags and told him he was a failure who couldn't even keep a roof over their heads. I stood frozen, processing the information. Kayla had abandoned Evan, the woman who swore to love him in sickness and in health, who worked him into betraying his own mother, who turned him into her obedient puppet, had ditched him the second he stopped being useful. The irony was so sharp it hurt. "And Evan?" I asked, unable to stop myself. Despite everything he'd done to me, he was still my son, and a part of me still worried. "He's wrecked," Beverly replied. "The neighbor says he cries all day. The house is a mess, no electricity, no water. He's still there like a ghost, not knowing what to do. I couldn't sleep that night. I pictured Evan alone in that dark house, probably hungry, broke, abandoned by the woman he'd sacrificed his mother for. One part of me wanted to run to him, to hug him like when he was little and had nightmares. But another part, the part that had grown stronger these weeks, knew if I did, I'd be validating everything he did to me. I'd be telling him he could treat me like trash, and I'd always come clean it up. On the 5th day after Kayla left, Evan showed up at Beverly's house. He came at dusk, haggard and dirty, with dark circles and wrinkled clothes. Beverly buzzed me on the intercom. "He's here. Do you want to see him?" My heart was pounding. This was the moment I'd been both avoiding and waiting for. "Tell him to come in," I replied, my voice shaky. I sat in the living room trying to brace for what was coming. When he walked in, I barely recognized him. My son, always meticulous, looked spent. Several days of beard growth, greasy, disheveled hair, a stained shirt. But it was his eyes that hit me. They were red and swollen, filled with a pain I knew too well. "Mom," he said, his voice cracking. That word, which I hadn't heard from his lips in months, sounded strange and familiar all at once. He paused at the doorway like he wasn't sure he had permission to step in. I said nothing. I just looked at him, waiting, needing him to go first. "I'm sorry," he finally whispered. "I'm so sorry, Mom. You were right about everything. About Kayla, about what she was doing to me, about what we did to you." Tears rolled down his cheeks, leaving clean trails through the grime. I was an idiot. I was the worst son. I treated you like nothing when you gave me love my whole life. I wanted to run to him, to say it was okay, but I stayed seated, steady. "And what changed, Evan?" I asked, quiet but cool. "Are you apologizing because you finally get what you did? Or because Kayla bailed and you're alone?" The question hung there like a blade. Evan collapsed, literally fell to his knees on my living room floor, sobbing like a child. "You're right. I saw it when she left. She called me useless, said I was never worth anything, that she only tolerated me because she thought you had more money. She said she wasted her time." His words came out broken between sobs, and while she was tearing me down, all I could think was how I said the same things to you, how I treated you worse than a stranger. "She hit my hand for trying to eat in my own house," I said, my voice flat. "And you told her she was the boss, that I needed her permission to breathe. Do you remember that, Evan?" He nodded, eyes down, shame in every line of his face. "I think about it every day," he cried. "Every day I hate myself for saying it. Dad must be rolling in his grave. I betrayed everything you both taught me. I betrayed the one person who never left me. His pain was real. I could see it. But pain doesn't erase months of abuse and humiliation. Do you know how I felt that night?" I asked, and for the first time my voice shook. I felt like my son had died. The boy I raised and loved was gone, replaced by a cruel stranger. I died 1,000 times in those months, Evan, 1,000. I wished I wouldn't wake up because living in my own home like that was unbearable. "I know, Mom. I know. And I have no excuses," he said, finally looking up. "Kayla manipulated me, but I let her. I chose her version of reality over you. I chose every day to treat you badly because it was easier than confronting her. I'm completely guilty. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know I finally see it. I see what I lost." We sat in silence. Beverly had quietly slipped away. I looked at my son on the floor, shattered and remorseful, and felt a knot of emotions I couldn't untangle. Love, pain, anger, compassion. "Apologies aren't enough," I said at last. "You can't crush a person for months and expect a few tears to fix it." Evan nodded. "I know. I'm not asking you to come back or forgive me today. I just needed to own what I did." "I don't hate you," I admitted, feeling my own tears rise. "That's the worst part. After everything, I still love you because you're my son. But I don't trust you. I don't know if I ever can again." Those words broke us both, because they were the hardest truth between us. "What are you going to do now?" I asked. Evan shrugged, hollow. "I don't know. No power, no water. I owe 3 months of property taxes and 2 months of utilities. My job barely pays for food. I'll probably lose the house anyway. There was acceptance there, a sense he deserved to lose everything. It's my house, Evan, I reminded him softly. It's in my name. You're not going to lose it, because legally it was never yours. I watched him process that, realizing he'd fought for something he didn't even own. He'd betrayed his mother for a thing that was never his. I can start eviction if I want, I continued. My lawyer says in 2 months you'd be out and the house would be completely mine again. I saw fear cross his face. Are you going to? He whispered. I don't know yet, I said honestly. Part of me wants it back. Another part never wants to set foot in that place of fresh hurt. Evan stayed quiet, not asking for anything, not expecting a bailout. That humility, accepting consequences, was new. Beverly made you something to eat, I said, nodding to the kitchen. Go eat. You look terrible. I don't deserve your kindness, he said, not moving. You probably don't, I said. But I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because I'm not Kayla. I don't abandon people at their lowest, even if they hurt me. It was a silent lesson, the difference between real love and the manipulation he'd mistaken for it. Evan ate quietly while I sat in the living room sorting through everything. When he finished, he stood at the door. Thank you for listening, Mom, and for the food. I know I don't deserve it. I nodded. I watched him walk down the street, shoulders slumped, a shadow of who he used to be. 2 months passed after Evan's visit, 2 months of the hardest decisions of my life. I didn't go back right away. I needed time to heal, to recover the pieces of myself I'd lost. Beverly was my anchor, reminding me daily that I deserved respect. Evan didn't come again, but he sent short weekly messages. Got a second job at a gas station. Paid the water back on. Cleaned the whole house, you'd like it. Simple notes that finally showed effort. But I still wasn't ready to reply. Beverly's attorney helped me see the path. Ms. Turner, the house is yours. You have 3 options. Take it back and move in. Take it back and sell to start fresh. Or keep it and rent it while you live elsewhere. What you can't do is let fear make the call. He was right. I'd fled, but I was still letting that place control me. So I decided to return, on my terms. I asked the attorney to draft an agreement. Not in eviction terms. Evan could stay under strict conditions. He'd pay a symbolic rent of $200 a month, deposited into a savings account in his name so he could eventually move out. He'd maintain the house, and most importantly, he'd attend therapy to work through manipulation and to repair our relationship. When I presented the document at a neutral coffee shop, Evan's hands shook as he read. You're giving me another chance? He asked, eyes wet. It's not a chance, I said firmly. It's a contract. Fail any part, you leave, no debate. Understand? I understand, he said quickly. And Mom, I can pay more now, I have 2. I raised my hand. It's not about money. It's about learning value. Nothing is free, and choices have consequences. The $200 matters because it means something. He signed without hesitation, but I didn't go back yet. I stayed with Beverly a few more months. I needed Evan to prove it with actions, not words. To my surprise, he did. He sent photos of the clean house every week, utility receipts, even therapy attendance notes. In therapy, he finally unpacked how Kayla targeted his insecurities, his unemployment, his fear, and used them to turn him into a puppet. How she isolated him from me until he couldn't see straight. His therapist made it clear, being manipulated explains behavior, but it doesn't excuse it. That line mattered. 3 months after the agreement, I finally went home. Evan met me at the door, visibly nervous. The house was spotless. He'd fixed the broken things. Fresh flowers stood in the entry vase, the one Kayla had tossed, now restored. Welcome home, Mom, he said, voice shaky. I walked through the rooms, taking in the changes. My favorite armchair was back in its spot. The photos Kayla boxed up were on the walls again. My closet held my clothes neatly organized. He had erased every trace of Kayla as if she'd never existed. More than that, he'd brought back the feel of home. It no longer felt like a prison. It felt like a refuge. You did good, I told him, and I watched his shoulders finally drop. Thank you for this chance, Mom. I don't deserve it, but I won't blow it. The months that followed were a slow rebuild. We didn't go back to how we were. Some things don't fully mend, but we built something new. Mutual respect, clear boundaries, honesty. I wasn't the mother who did everything. He wasn't the son who took it all for granted. We were two adults learning to live with the scars. Evan worked 2 jobs and saved. 6 months later, he came home with news. Mom, I think I'm ready to find my own apartment. I've got the deposit and first month. Pride and relief washed over me. You sure? Completely. It's time to be truly independent. The day Evan moved to his small place, I helped him pack. It was strange and bittersweet, but healthy, chosen for the right reasons. Visit often, I said as we loaded the last box. And Mom, he replied, hugging me. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to. Now I live alone in my house, as it should have been after Henry passed. Beverly visits 3 times a week. We talk late and laugh. Evan comes for Sunday dinner. Our relationship isn't perfect, but it's real and built on honesty. He's still in therapy, working on his stuff. I started therapy too, to heal the damage from those months. Sometimes I think about Kayla and wonder where she landed. Far as I know, she found another vulnerable man with money and is running the same play. I hope he finds the strength Evan lacked at first. But it's not my problem anymore. She's a closed chapter. What I learned is simple. Love without respect isn't love. It's abuse wearing a mask. Family doesn't give you a pass to mistreat someone. Sometimes stepping back from people you love is the only way to save yourself and to give them a chance to grow. Above all, it's never too late to reclaim your dignity. My house is my sanctuary again. The walls hold music I play when I want, laughter with Beverly, and honest conversations with Evan. I got my life back. I got my space back. And most importantly, I got myself back. That night at the refrigerator feels like a distant, bad dream now, a reminder of how low you can sink when you forget your worth, and of the strength you find when you finally say enough. I'm 62 and I'm starting over. Some will say it's late. It's not. It's never too late to choose dignity, to reclaim your life, and to remember you deserve respect, especially in your own home, especially from the people who claim to love you. This isn't a revenge tale. It's a recovery story. Not about punishment, about healing. If you're going through something similar, hear me. You have power. You might be scared. You might feel weak. But there's a strength in you that will blow your mind. Take the first step, the rest follows. Today, I open my refrigerator when I want. I eat when I'm hungry. I breathe without asking permission. And every time I do, I remember the price I paid for this freedom and I smile. Because after everything, I came home not just to my house, but to myself. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you enjoyed it, you can support me with a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you for your sweet support. I'm excited to read your thoughts. On screen, you'll see 2 new life stories I highly recommend. There's a lot more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.